welcome to the Workshop Therapy Podcast. I'm your host, Andrew, and joining me today is my nephew who thinks he's my favorite uncle. That made no sense.
What?
I need to change that. Joining me today is my nephew who thinks I'm, his favorite uncle. There we go. That's what I meant to say.
Yeah.
I'm your favorite uncle is what I'm saying.
Yeah, we'll work on that one.
The introduction or the fact that I'm your favorite uncle?
Well, both.
Well, who's your favorite uncle?
Oh, well, who has more YouTube subscribers, you or Nathan?
Nathan does.
Oh.
But I would argue that social media is more successful for me.
Yeah,
Actually,
that's how I base which uncle I like most, is their success on social media.
Well, that's how basically everybody gauges their success these days, is their success on social media. If you're not famous on social media, you are worthless. Anyway, sorry to those of you who are not famous on social media. Although I'm pretty certain that actually most of the people who are supporters of the podcast, in particular anyway, are probably more successful on social media than I am. But anyway,
well, like I said in the pre-show, I'm pretty famous. I got like 20 subscribers on YouTube now, so kind of a big deal.
Yeah, well, actually, when you stop and think about that, though, in reality, that means 20 people watched your video and took the time to subscribe and said, "Hey, I'm interested in what this guy has to say."
True. It's what I base my entire self-esteem on.
I mean, to be fair, probably 10 of those are your mom's fake accounts. But...
Yeah. My mom doesn't even go on YouTube. She told me that today. Said she doesn't like my videos.
That's just to throw you off the scent. Yeah. I'm a subscriber.
Oh, yeah.
And I comment occasionally.
Oh, yeah. I even replied to your comment. That's how personalized my social media experience.
It's not hard to be personalized when you have 20 followers.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I guess I was going to try to say something about, I wanted to have you on but in reality, you wanted to.
Oh, yeah. I wanted to be on so bad. I like being on a podcast. Like I listen to a lot of Dateline, a lot of, other podcasts. So like, hey, my uncle's got a podcast. I got to get on. And yeah, like I said in the pre-show, this is like the Workshop Therapy Podcast. I'm kind of a woodworker and I have tons of mental issues. So it's perfect.
And probably some of them are even my fault. So it's probably a good time. Anyway, yeah. So when you were in high school, I remember this because I'm older than you. You were like, didn't you want to be an engineer or something like that?
Yeah, I was, math and science and those were like all those subjects. They were like my first subject. And so thinking, what does someone who likes science and math do? Well, they go and be an engineer. That's what everyone else was doing. That's what a bunch of my friends were doing that also like math and science. So, I'll go do that. And I like building stuff. It's like a good fit. But then I actually went to university and discovered that I suddenly hated math and science and all those annoying subjects, and that being an engineer wasn't, I didn't get to actually do much building of the Bat Pod. That's what a Bat Pod. Have you seen The Dark Knight?
I have not, actually. I haven't watched any of that.
There's a motorbike on there I wanted to build. Anyway, but I discovered that the, engineers typically don't do that so much. So then I was back to the drawing board of what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And I still kind of am there.
Still hasn't grown up yet.
Yeah, we're still figuring that out.
To be fair, I'm on degree number 4, so I don't think I've figured it out yet either. I've just taken a different path.
Yeah. My solution to not knowing what I want: quit school, quit everything, and go off on my own. Andrew seems to think that more school, keep going to school.
Yeah, it's kind of like a crackhead,
Yeah.
It's like, I just need one more hit, man. The next one more year, then I'll be done. Promise. Keep telling myself. Yes. No, it's I'll be honest. I do enjoy the learning process. Like, I like learning. I like the university knowledge access to that. You became disillusioned with that kind of your undergrad, right? And undergrad is a slog, especially the first year or two. It really is like, we're going to weed you out sort of an attitude.
Yeah. And I do want to clarify here, just, my pride flaring up here. I did do good. Like, I had good grades. It wasn't like I flunked. Okay. I was like near the top of my class, but I got so tired of not learning what I wanted to learn. Because like you're saying, like, I love that learning. I love being able to discover new things and learn how to do it. Like when I was building this cabin, the process of just learning how to do it was half the fun, because I had to figure out how to do the plumbing, do the gas, propane line, how to build the thing so it wouldn't fall down, And so like, I loved learning it, but I don't know. I got sick of, a buddy of mine did engineering. And when he finished up, tell me about it. When you go through school and you did this whole engineering thing, he's still not an engineer, right? Like he still has to become accredited and do all these other. So I don't know. Maybe I was just lazy. I'm sure there's lots of people that are like disagreeing with me right now. But anyway, that was my.
Well, the reality of it is, university in particular isn't for everybody. Like it is, and it shouldn't be. I think the world has glorified education too much to the detriment of other things. Like there's lots of jobs,
like formal education.
Yeah, formal. There's lots of jobs out there I didn't even know exist till recently. I think great. Like I've often said that had I known that custom furniture was an option when I graduated high school, I probably would have done that, or I would have gone and done interior trim work or something like that. But I never. Well, I mean, you went to the same high school I did, and it when I was going through, the courses were arranged in such a way that it was either you were going to university, so you have to take these courses, or you're going into the trades, so you can take these.
Right.
Like I never had the opportunity. Like I would have loved to take the knife make shop. Like that would have been great, but it was scheduled in the same time slot as like Math 20 Pure, and I had to take Math 20 Pure to go to university. So it just wasn't an option for me. The shop class, they weren't available.
Right. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. Like I'm all about education. Absolutely believe that education is important and necessary as a part of life, right? Like if you stop learning, you're dead. I think might as well be. You should be always learning. But and what you're saying about like either trades or the university, that's what I find interesting. Like especially in northern Alberta here, there are a lot of trade. You go on trade, then that's good. But then I go down south to like Lethbridge area where my mom grew up, and all of her brothers, their family, they all got to go to university. You're not going to university, then you're wasting your. And I don't know. I've been trying to find a happy medium between the two of like figuring out how to get real education, because I do think there's different, YouTube education and like a formal education, in the quality thereof, because anybody with a laptop can record a podcast or post a YouTube video.
This isn't just any laptop.
Oh yeah. But you know what I mean? Like it's hard to, anyone can portray themselves as professional. So there needs to be a certain amount accreditation or vetting, so that we're getting legitimate. I don't know, I've just become disillusioned, like you said, with formal education.
Well, that's where honestly I find the education path that I've got in the distance learning aspect of it is different, because number one, you can do it at your own pace. You don't have to be at the school at 8:35 exactly, blah blah blah. Right. You have certain outcomes to meet, and if you meet the first 2 days a week, or if by the end of the week, it doesn't matter. And on top of that, I'm universities in Fredericton, so that's 5,000 kilometers from here. Yeah. But I can still do it. I think but university formal education, that is a post-secondary education. There's lots of, like, I would love to go down to NAIT, for example, Northern Alberta Institute of Technology in Edmonton, and they have some weekend type course in Blacks, other stuff like that. That'd be
like, I actually applied for NAIT just this year. Actually, I was going to do some like accounting online, but they ended. So like I still think education is good. I feel like that's one good thing that came out of COVID, though, is just how online everything is now. It kind of showed everyone that, you don't have, like you said, you don't have to be there physically to get the education.
Yeah, and that's enabled people to have a broader access and as how. But so I'm curious how you decided that you wanted to get in cabin.
Yeah, so honestly, I read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki. I don't know, have you read that one? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I haven't read it.
You know what it is. And like Robert Kiyosaki, I feel like he's a kind of a controversial guy in a lot of ways. You either hate him or you love him, I feel like. But I read the book, and he talks about, entrepreneurial and how he builds his businesses, and talks about assets. And then it was just kind of a whole combination of things where he talks about how an asset is something that builds revenue, puts money in your pocket as to take it out. So that's, I think, lots of people confused, is they think, like, well, my house is an asset. Well, no, like a house technically isn't an asset because it costs, you have to pay property tax, you have maintenance and all this stuff. You can argue like, well, it is an asset because you'll have to sell it, but is it really giving you any benefit?
In which case, if property values have gone up, you're still behind the 8 ball, because now you have to buy a more expensive property.
Right. Yeah. Like you think about, you ask anyone who owned a house in 2008 when the housing housing market crashed and ask them if they thought. But anyway, getting off topic, I guess. But anyway, the point of it all is I started thinking like, well, what is an asset? What could be an asset that I could put my money into that would produce money? Because I was getting sick of just doing the labor jobs because, like I said, I didn't go to school. I didn't have any real credentials of any kind. And so I was kind of limited on what I could do work-wise to provide for my family and whatnot. So I thought like, well, I want to start building a cabin. There's Airbnb thing. Airbnb's got their business structure and everything. And it was the way Airbnb is set up is it's a good entry-level type of business to get into because they handle all like the marketing and the insurance and all that side. They already have an established, clientele that you can just kind of latch onto. So in that sense, I thought, well, this is a good entry-level entrepreneurial venture for me to try out, and so far it's been good. So I learned how to build a cabin. So I built a cabin. And so far it's been good. Yeah, it puts money in our pocket, and clean it and maintain it.
Yeah, so the ultimate goal then with that long perspective, have it set up so you're making money off of the asset without having put any effort.
Right.
Like you'll be like the Northern Alberta Airbnb cabin king.
Yeah. That's the hope.
and hire your migrant labor cleaners to come around and do all the cleaning.
Yeah. Well, like I just finished a second cabin here this week. I'm going to find a place to set it up. I got a couple places in mind. But yeah, that's the idea. Like you're saying, eventually if you can build your business big enough so that it makes sense, you can hire people, then eventually get over the hump itself, right? And I think too, like the one difference between me and Robert Kiyosaki, yes, Robert Kiyosaki loves the build. When you listen to him, he just loves to build. He loves to make money. He loves being rich, getting rich dad, poor thing, And that's not really on my agenda. Like I'm not so interested in becoming the next Warren Buffett per se, or the next Robert Kiyosaki or whoever. But I think it's just what my wife and I are working towards is sustainability. Like if I were to lose my leg tomorrow, and I'm unable to, or whatever happened, how long would we be able to continue to live at our current, lifestyle and not suffer any severe consequences? And so that's kind of what we're headed, trying to build something we can live on. We aren't an employee.
That's where Tamara and I are at. We're, we have enough saved that we could live to the end of our lives comfortably if we died tomorrow.
Clever.
But yeah, no. And that's kind of one of the reasons why I am doing the degree I am too. Like you said, what if I lose my leg or what if I whatever? The only way that once I'm done this degree that I can't work is if I'm dead.
Right.
Right. or if I guess if I have a stroke and I'm a vegetable, I can't work anymore. But at that point,
physically intense.
Yeah. If I'm a vegetable, obviously I don't care anymore.
Yeah. Your family does though. But
that's their problem.
Yeah. Well, real family.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I see where you're coming from. And that's one of the reasons, honestly, that we're here versus anywhere else, because the sustainability aspect of it as well, because we sold our house with enough profit to hopefully get our house closed in and dry and heated without a mortgage. And so then, from there on, you've heard it here first, folks. This is, I haven't said anything on any other social medias yet, but the influencer business is finally paying off a little bit here. I'll be working with a sponsor in the near future as part of the house build. It's exciting. But that's, again, speaks to your effort of your point of putting in effort that gives you an asset. And that's where kind of my social media stuff has been not very profitable, but has built an asset. And most of it has been about community, interact people that I'm interested. But as a corollary to that, then now there is an opportunity to talk about my business, other business who are going along with or who have similar interest, and also hopefully that defend. But yeah, building some sort of asset for your future is definitely critical, especially you look around. COVID proved, as much as it changed online delivery of everything, it also proved that everything can get shut down at the drop of a hat, and all it takes is one idiot to start buying toilet paper, and suddenly there's toilet paper in stores. And
yeah, and like regardless of what side of the fence or what your beliefs are, I feel like we can all agree that the world is pretty volatile, where everything's, the big fight on in the States between Trump and Biden and all that. Not to get
there is no Biden.
Oh yeah. Regardless of where you stand, there's, I think, security, I guess, like we're talking sustainability, security, I feel like is something that most of us reach. And I gotta be careful. I don't want to sound like we're just all about the money, we want to, honestly, I love building. Like I said, when I was in high school, I loved I love building things. I love shop class. I love those kinds of things, and here's a career where I get to build these unique cabins, these unique structures. I get to share that with other people, right? And also to bring it around to mental health for your podcast here.
Oh,
yeah.
Nice transition.
You're not the only master of segues.
I've never ridden a Segway.
No, I haven't actually. They look tricky.
Did you know? Speaking of Segways,
yeah,
the founder of not the founder, the owner of Segway bought it from the founder of Segway. I think it's how it goes.
You're losing me.
So one of the owners of Segway died because he drove a Segway off a cliff.
No way.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. Oh, I mean, it's
Ironically sad.
very sad. Not hilarious, very sad, but
or something like that.
Something.
He died somehow involving Segway. Anyway,
yeah.
Sorry,
it's not great marketing for their business.
yeah, kind of like the rich guy who killed himself in a submarine.
Yeah,
another tragedy.
Yeah.
Anyway, mental health.
Yeah. Anyway,
now that was masterful there.
Yeah, there you go. Well, like honestly, if I could not to get too personal here, but like before we started this, I was kind of at a low point in my too. I was kind of I felt I was a university dropout. I had a wife and kid on the way, and just kind of like I haven't got anything. I drove school bus, still drive school bus, best job ever. But anyway,
I hate other people's kids. I don't know how you do it.
Yeah, well, driving school bus is the perfect job if there weren't any kids. But other than that, no, I love the kids. Anyway,
just in case any of them listen, they're all great.
They're all awesome. But yeah, so I was kind of feeling down on myself, having a pity party every night. And, the farming thing with Dad really wasn't working out the way I was hoping it was going to. It was going a lot better now, actually. But at the time, I was just kind of frustrated and moved the whole family up here. And we were just kind of at a low point, right? But then I had this idea to build a cab business. And so it was fascinating to me of how quickly my own mental well-being, my own mental health shifted once I had that going. Once I started building it, I had something I was working towards. Suddenly everything else in life that seemed like a big deal wasn't any, because I had that goal and then when I finished this, I just finished last year, December, and there was a period of like a month or two where all of a sudden I started going downhill again. I felt crappy, it felt awful, like, oh, what's the point of life? What am I doing? And then, I got to build again. So then I started building this next one that I just finished this week, and life got better again. So I don't know what it is, if it's like that, like that goal-driven nature that just makes everything better, or what. But
I think it's probably a combination thing. Like, number one, purpose.
Right.
Like you read stories, like people in concentration camps in World War II, stuff like that, and the people who gave up their purpose are the ones that died. People who had a goal or had hope or whatever, they're the ones that thrive. Well, maybe not thrive, but survive through the process. And so if you have that goal, then that helps you get through the low. If you have a destination, otherwise you're kind of spinning. And I think the other thing is, and this is one of the reasons why in podcast workshop therapy podcast is because depending on, you and I have similar belief systems as far as the way the world is, but regardless of your belief, the vast majority of human, whether that's 7,000 years or 13 million years, whatever it is, the vast majority of that history, people have been using their hands, physically create and make things, whether it's their food or their shelter or their furniture or their whatever. And so then it's only been in these last, 40 years, 50 years, where we've moved from a physical productive economy to a mental imaginary economy. Not that there isn't space for imagination, art, creativity that way, but I think we as a species are driven to create things. And if we don't do that, then there's something at a loss.
Yeah.
No,
I would agree, definitely. Like regardless of what you're saying, what your belief system is, I believe that that drive to create, build something new, I think that's a divine inheritance. Whether you believe in God or whatever that may be, like you're saying, I think that's just kind of built into us as a species to create something new. And because like honestly, when I finished the cabin, that was like my favorite pastime. I don't know, maybe this is a prideful thing, but I'd love to just sit back in a lawn chair and just stare at it. You're just, wow, yeah, I built that, and I don't know, there's some kind of, it's interesting to see. And, and had a baby, last year. And, I can just sit there and look at this kid that I helped create, and it's just fascinating to me, so I definitely think there is something more there. There's something in us that we need to create, and that's part of how we are happy.
Yeah, and that's one of the therapies that I was actually learning about here recently called experiential therapy. And so it's basically mental health through experience, right? Like, and digging into this is like, what's experiential therapy? Experience thing,
right?
And tying it to your mental health. So there's all sorts of like going for a walk or picking flowers or gardening or working on a hobby or it's like, so basically the whole premise of therapy is go do something,
right?
And then shazam, start feeling better.
Well, it's like what you were saying, how like, when it's not that long ago, like people don't have to be as physical as they used to, and like you said, not that like art, imagination bad, but it wasn't even an option. I feel like not that long ago. Like your dad, my grandpa, he didn't have a lot of time in his life growing up to experience his imagination or whatever, because they were working just to live. So, yeah. But in, these days, as things are getting so good that, this experiential therapy thing becomes a thing, because people, there's no need to do anything anymore.
Yeah, we're working recreational.
Yeah.
So, anyway, so on another topic, you're a famous author.
Oh,
you showed me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have.
By famous, I had no idea.
I'm about as famous of an author as I am a YouTuber.
So you have 20 books?
Yeah, no. I have one story that got published, and it's a story about a cowboy that gets turned into a lobster, a giant lobster. It's not more like a scorpion monster. But anyway, no, it's a little horror thing. But that was...
Yeah, you need to say scorpion monster thing, because if it's a horror story, the cowboy got turned into a lobster. It just doesn't sound as good.
It's scary, okay? But no, that's really cool. And that was kind of in the same vein as what I was talking about with Asset.
Is it on it?
Yes, the book. It's called Long Harrowed Trails. Is the book. It's an anthology of a bunch of short stories. So I wrote one of the called The All. I believe I had.
Send me the link. Put it.
Oh yeah, I'll do that. But yeah, probably the best story in the whole book, I might add. But no,
didn't read the rest. But
yeah, could if you want. But no, I was just a good one. No, I got into writing a few years ago, and that was kind of one of my tangents that I went on when I'm trying to figure out what I want to be when I grow up. And I still like to write. I would still love to do that, but I just haven't had time, since the Airbnb thing. But yeah, like it was kind of along the same veins as when I was talking about asset. Because I think like if you can write a book, that would be an intellectual asset that can money you're gone. And honestly, that's why I haven't gone very far, is because I wasn't really writing for the money, and I just to live in imagination. Like we were talking, like we were just saying, I work as little as possible, and so I spend a lot of time just swimming in my own imagination.
Yeah, actually, and to be honest, if you were to look at my laptop screen here, there's a folder that says creative writing.
Oh,
and I have several, kind of the beginning, several different things there. But one of my background passion projects currently actually is I think it's going to be a thesis for my PhD if I do it. But I've been thinking about ways of automating environment.
Oh yeah, I remember listening to one of your other episodes.
Yeah, and because there's so many, like willpower, right? Like everybody, you just have to have the willpower to do that. But willpower is a finite. You only have so much of it. And so if every decision you make takes willpower, by the end of the day you're burnt, or before the end, and you come home and you eat ice cream, binge watch something on Netflix and fall asleep, and then repeat the cycle. So there's lots of self-help type books out there that are like, oh, you just need to stick to it, or you just need to do 15 of these a day and whatever, and you're good. But not very many of them go through the how and why of changing your decision-making patterns. Like the example I use is if you want to start writing in your journal or write down a to-do list every morning before you work, you start by putting your phone underneath your book. So then you have to use willpower to get phone instead of picking up the book and automating that thing, right? Like the automatic action is pick up the book and then you go, okay, yeah, I guess right. Versus I pick up the book, move the book aside. Now I actively had to have chosen to pick up the phone. Doom.
Turning willpower against itself. Like, yeah, I've heard you talk about this. The other clicked in my brain this time. You said, like, yeah, you have to use willpower to do the thing that you shouldn't do, or not that, shouldn't put it, but yeah, I think I know what you mean.
Yeah, and that's where like you like making things, finding something that you enjoy making. It's easy to do that because you don't have to use willpower to do it. Whereas if you were working for some soulless corporation making widgets for scratching your back, unless you really enjoy that sort of thing, you have to use willpower to get that job done.
Yeah.
Right. And then the downstream effect of that is by the end of the day, your willpower has been depleted and force yourself to do your job throughout the day. So then when you get home, you sit down in front of the TV and you watch the advertisements. You have no willpower, and it's super easy to order stuff on Amazon. You go onto Amazon and then you order the crap that comes to your door. And then when you get it in the morning, you see that and then you realize that you just screwed yourself over because now you have to pay for that. And then you have to go back to work and use your willpower, and it becomes a whole cycle.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like the ultimate question. For me, it's the evening. Like during the day, I'm like so driven. I can do all this stuff, but then I get home in the evening, and like you said, doom scrolling, or we just sit down and watch Dateline, or some other Netflix show, and it's just, I don't know how. But then the next day, when I'm ripping and raring to go, then I look back on the previous evening, and you're like, oh, I wasted that evening. I could have been working on some more writing or drawing something, or like researching the business, or like there's a million good things to do, but it's just so easy not.
Well, that's another thing about automating environment I could touch on too, that I could touch on is you become paralyzed by too many decisions. Like you have so many options, and they're not bad. Like it's not bad to sit scroll on your phone or watch
You're
Dateline,
not a
or
bad person doing that.
No, you're not a bad person, and it doesn't cause harm unless it comes to excess. But if you figure out how to automate the decisions to, for example, put your creative writing book or computer, whatever, in front of the screen that you're going to watch on, then you can, again, you have to go force yourself to make a decision versus having, like 15 options. So you take the
right. Yeah. So it's like putting things in your way that you actively have to get around, do the thing that you don't actually.
Yeah. Another good podcast, and I know I've talked about it on here before too. The good books to read be Essentialism. Have you ever read that?
No.
By Greg McEwen.
Essential.
Yeah. Essentialism. Whatever. I'll put them in the show notes.
Something awesome. McEwen. Anyway.
It is, and it's all about doing more with less. So what he says is, unless you say no, you are saying yes to everything. So you end up sacrificing things of more importance to things of less importance. So your skill level is such for this whatever thing, but then you say yes to everything. You never actually get to thing that's actually important. You end up doing less. Or another way that he describes it, another way that it can get you, is everybody wants to do their best. They're at the thing, and he uses the example of this woman who is in charge of the audio visual department versus maybe significant.
Yep.
But anyway, she's in charge of the audio tech stuff at you, and there's this one particular student in the class who isn't going to be able to make all of the lecture, and so the professor contacted them and said, this person have the lecture, blah blah blah, and so then she's okay, we'll get this team together and we'll have 3 camera angles and blah blah blah, and so she's turning this whole thing into this big massive production, and then she stops based on Greg McEwen's coaching and says, okay, what's the real thing that needs to be done? And it turns out there was like 5 of the lecture the whole semester that the student's going to miss, and so they gave one of the other student in class a cell phone camera on it and asked them to record the lecture.
Oh.
and the professor was happy, the student was happy, and saved herself 30 hours of work per week. Right. So sometimes our own desire to do the best job possible also gets in the way of, good enough is good enough.
Right. Well, that's kind of interesting. I'm thinking about, well, like, I always got to bring everything back to my Airbnb because that's how my brain works. But like thinking about,
because that's a flogging currently.
Yeah. My shameless plug over and over. Thinking about like amenities, what things things we should provide for the cabin. Should get an ice cream machine and all these things. And, it's easy to think like, well, if we put all these fancy things in there, then it's going to make it even better. But then at the end of the day, that's not what people are coming out to look for. They're coming out for an outdoor experience to get away from the city, that kind of thing, right? And so sometimes less is more in a lot of ways. I don't know if that's exactly what you were trying to, that's where my mind was.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. And I mean, there is also like, focusing on your core experience as an Airbnb owner. Sure, there's going to be, oh wow, this place had an ice cream maker and a pool table and and a deep fryer and a griddle and a barbecue and a smoker, and I was there for one day and I wasn't able to use any of them except for the one that I was going to use. Right. And sure, somebody's going to use the ice cream maker and somebody else use the whatever,
the pool table, or the hot table, or
the foosball table, or whatever you jam in there. Somebody's going to use it eventually, but did it provide enough value to them to make it provide a value to you?
Mm-hmm. And you can take that in perspective of your life as well. Like what we think that all these things, if we have like the nice and all these wonderful things, is it really going to provide what we expect our mental health, but
or your physical,
right?
Because I don't know if I can drive anymore with
air conditioned seats.
No, I don't have air. I do have, but in all honesty, for me, and this is kind of to your point. For me, I literally don't think I can live without a heated steering wheel because my hands hurt if I don't have warm time. They just feel worse, and if my hands are super cold, they hurt And so I'm like, honestly, a heated steering wheel, I could do with crank up windows, no air conditioning, and a cassette player. I don't even need a cassette player. I could just have an AM radio. and if I have a heated steering wheel, that's all I need.
Right. And it depends on who you are, right? And what you value and what you don't.
So I'm prideful with my heated steering wheel.
Yeah.
I mean, the other luxuries are nice, but again, to your Airbnb thing, you don't need the core experience is the vehicle.
Yeah.
And so in your case, your Airbnb, the core experience is to be out of the city with no cell service and have the cows around on the edge of the lake and blah, blah, blah. I'm assuming cows are.
They're not, but you can hear them, but
that's actually the best of it because then you don't step in.
Yes, that's very true.
Step in their remnants.
Their excrement. Yeah. Well, it's just, I don't know, maybe this is a whole other topic, but thinking about like luxuries nowadays and kind of coming back to what we were talking about with how nowadays, people don't have to be as physical as they used to. And I think in a lot of ways, our minds have been skewed a bit on what really is a luxury, like what we really need to be happy or even just live. Because like really indoor plumbing, having a toilet inside is a luxury that we can live without, but you talk to the vast majority of people and oh my goodness, like they could not live without that. But I don't know, but I'm guessing the majority of people in this world live without indoor plumbing. And I don't think we really realize just how good we have it.
I was talking to your dad a few years ago and we were talking about how our grandpa did it because it's like, here's your dad. I don't know how much land your dad has, a couple thousand acres, that right?
Yeah.
And here he was complaining about, I'm just barely making enough to make ends meet and support my family and blah, 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 and 5,000 he has. And don't know how grandpa did it. He has 2 kids. Your dad has 2 kids. Grandpa had 11.
Yeah.
And he was on 160 acres, blah, blah, blah. And then we talked about it for a bit and realized, well, number one, grandpa didn't have a car. Grandpa didn't have power, didn't have running water, didn't have a telephone, didn't have internet, didn't have a cell phone, all of these things, and didn't pay property.
Yeah.
The whole 9 yards. And so I guess you can live on a whole lot less when you have nothing.
Yeah. When you're pushed to it, I think we'll be surprised with what you really need.
Yeah. Did you ever watch shows like Alone?
Yeah. Wife and I love Alone.
Yeah. That's and I think that speaks to the popularity of those types of shows is that it really does. You know what? Yeah, it may suck, but you can survive without your cell phone, without your computer, without net, without and going back to the original sustainability thing. That's one of the reasons that we're here. Is my wife's health and returning to an area where we can be in control of our food production from beginning and is kind of the best way for us to move forward as far as health. And not to say that everybody grow their own food, everybody needs to whatever, right? But I think there are a lot of things where people their mental health suffers because what if next week there's a natural disaster and suddenly the food trucks can't make it into city and shelter, right? And so I think there's a lot of value mental health wise and happiness wise for people who do take the time to get an arrow garden, for example, at all. It's like a little hydroponic thing. We have a couple, but you can, just a foot square space on your countertop with 2 or 3 watts, you can grow 6 heads of lettuce.
Grow a tomato
or you can grow a tomato. And I think there's a lot of value in that for people's mental health, especially because they are creating something and they're proving to themselves that, hey, I can survive. I'm not a victim of circumstance. I'm not a victim.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like we just had you and your family over for supper tonight and talking about your wife and what she can eat and what she can't eat. And even just that, it just puts into perspective, like, I'm going to really appreciate the next bowl of ice cream I have, or because it's like your wife can't eat anything. She can eat some lettuce and some dried chicken. And she might probably still be sick tonight, because maybe I didn't clean the grill well enough after I cooked the burgers for everyone else.
Yeah. But yeah. And that's her reality, right? And like, it's stressful. And she never complains about it. She's great. Like, you'll never hear her up there thumping the pulpit sort of nonsense about,
right.
like, people need to be cognizant of my gluten intolerance issue, blah, blah, blah. Like some people are.
Yeah.
But ... You know who you are, people. but I mean, she's always has conscious of what, because of, and to be honest, because it's an autoimmune problem, there's always this was fine this week and next week it screws you over. And so what do you...
Always a surprise coming.
Yeah, every meal is an excitement. But
even my mom, we're like, she not the same thing at all, but like she's had stomach issues. She doesn't have a stomach. She can't eat anything really and has to hook up to a TPN, a total something like that. Yeah, it's an intravenous feeding that just goes straight into bloodstream. And so they have to be super careful about it. It's just easy to take for granted what we have, I guess, is what I feel like the theme of what we're talking about. It's
you're the guest. You do whatever you want. Don't listen to me.
Yeah.
It's none of mine. Never mind.
Yeah. But it's just like, I don't know. I think like real happiness, back to Airbnb again, it's just being satisfied with, what we have and being not just satisfied, but like recognize that it's what we need and it's what we have. And no, my wife and I don't have a fancy car. We're driving the same car I had in high school. No.
You guys got a Buick's or luxury car.
But like, we...
I'm going to say with paid Buicks.
Yeah, and my wife's parents helped us out with that one, and so like, no, we're not rich and we don't have all the fancy, but I get to spend lots of time with my wife and kid, and to me that's another reason we're doing it. It's a home-based business. I see my wife and child everywhere, whereas I could go work on the oil rig, go somewhere else and make all kinds of money, buy all kinds of stuff, but is that really what we need?
Yeah, well, and that's what Tamara and I, again, different path, same goal, right? Like, our end goal is to be working together and doing the things that we want together, because I can't wrap my head around. Yeah, I like my alone time every once in a while, but I married my wife, the greatest person in the world.
Yeah, she's my best friend. Why would I want to get away from her?
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, sounds like the natives are getting restless upstairs. It's probably time for me to take my kids home.
The natives, as in my family,
or my family,
or your family. Yeah, gotta be careful. We're not being racially
the rodents.
Yeah.
The vermin upstairs are getting restless. Anyway, so we should wrap it up here. Actually, we're So thank you for listening, everybody. Thanks for coming on, Levi.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You are 100% my favorite nephew named. Actually, I can say that you are 100% my favorite nephew. No, I can't. Well, no, I can say that, but I shouldn't say that.
Awkward silence. Like, what about?
Yes. No, I guess I have 2 nephews who live in the area, and they're both equally my favorite.
Yep.
For different reasons.
Yep.
Forgot that the other one lives right across from me. Anyway.
Maybe you just edit that part out.
I might, because I know his mother listens. Your son is my favorite nephew who lives close to me.
There you go.
There we go.
Yep.
Anyway, thank you for listening, everyone. If you have any questions, please send them to questions@workshoптherapypodcast.com. And do you have any other social medias besides the Hatch Huts on YouTube?
Yeah, well, Facebook.
That you want people to follow?
Yeah. Yeah. So at Hatch Huts on YouTube and Hatch Huts on Facebook, and check us out there. And yeah, if you're ever up in northern Alberta, if you want to come and visit Andrew, the man himself, I have an Airbnb for you to stay at.
There you go. Because you can't stay at my house.
Yep. You don't have a house, so
it's true.
There you go.
You can't, because I'm homeless.
You're working on it.
Eventually. Thanks for listening. So if you found anything from this episode to be helpful and you want to reinforce it for yourself, I'd like to invite you to share it with a friend in the next 24 hours. That'll help reinforce it in your mind, and it'll help those around you, which is always a good thing. So thanks again for listening, and now I'd like to say thank you to all the amazing patrons of the Workshop Therapy Podcast. You guys make the show possible. If you're finding the show helpful and you want to support it, there are a few tiers, including a simple $1 a month option to just say thanks. For $5 a month, you can get access to the patrons only feed that has a pre-show and a post-show, in addition to the regular podcast, all in one feed. You all know that the good stuff happens after the official mics are off, right? If you can't support financially, I totally understand, but I'd love it if you left a 5-star review or told a friend about the podcast. If you have any questions or feedback, I'd love to hear that as well. Send it to questions@workshoptherapypodcast.com and I'll get it on the show. I want to say thank you to all the patrons of the Workshop Therapy Podcast, but especially to the founding fathers, and they are Mr. Matthew Serio from Argiano Serio, Mr. Brad Harrison of Brad's Customs, Mr. Keith Drennan of Blackthorn Concepts, Mr. Eric Peterson of Overall Maker Works, Mr. Brandon Millichamp of Tectonic Creations, and the one and only the Grant Alexander. So a special thank you to the founding fathers, and thank you to everybody who supports and shares the Workshop Therapy Podcast.